I hope if there's anybody who watches this and they can actually do something in China, I really hope that open up your heart, open up your eyes and learn, really just learn and help people. This is, if China has a future, it's within the hands of neurodiverse people. Really is.
So, can I just ask, first of all, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Maggie. My last name is Chiang. I have been, well, my background is psychology and human resource. I currently work for of Canada, and on my spare times, I volunteer my time to help people in China, students and adults, to learn about dyslexia and the whole of dyslexia, so the strengths and the weaknesses. And I have been doing that since 2016. I've also helped translated the book entitled Dyslexic Advantage by Doctors Ide and Ide. I'm actually finishing the second edition of it, and I'm very excited to join this opportunity with Martin.
I've met Brock
to share my experience
once. I just went, oh my God, you're translating their book. That's fantastic. So, I mean, okay, so the first thing I'm supposed to ask is, you talked about dyslexic advantages as well as disadvantages. Now, generally speaking, when people go for a dyslexia diagnostic assessment or any form of screening, it's because of things they can't do. So what is it about these advantages? Would you like to explain a little bit, please?
So according to Dr. Ide and Ide, the dyslexic advantages are break down into mind, M-I-N-D, 4 strengths. And it could be that you possess one of the 4 or all 4, and you don't have to be dyslexic to have them. And these advantages, I strongly encourage people who's interested to look up. It involves in different field. And what the interesting part of it is, on the book, it categorizes these strengths into different occupations. So individuals with dyslexia could look into, like read about the cases and look into themselves and see what occupations that might interest them.
Ah, yeah, yeah. So it actually it adds as almost like a framework for where you can activate your strengths.
Exactly. Yes.
So I've heard, yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
I've heard about the mind strengths. Would you like to talk about any of them that interest you?
So mind strengths. So it's I usually present this in Mandarin more often than English. So it's
please feel free. By the way, please feel free. If there's anybody who speaks Mandarin here watching this, then I'm sure they'll be really thrilled to hear it.
They are 4 strengths. They are material reasoning, which is the ability to reason about like physical, like 3D imaging, like you usually see it in engineers. Some surgeons have it. Like it's fantastic. Interconnected reasoning. It's an ability to see like things that doesn't really have connections, like the correlations between things. Like I think entrepreneurs, I know a lot of entrepreneurs have it. I know that likely if Warren Buffett, he's dyslexic, he probably has this, I think. Yeah, these like connections, and he can invest his money very precisely. And then the narrative reasoning, it's like you can connect series of things that have happened to you personally, and then you recall past experiences. And it's like storytellers. Was it the person who wrote Harry Potter? Was she dyslexic? I think if she was,
I don't think she was. Although I'll have to check. I looked it up once, and she talks about dyslexia. So I looked it up to see whether she is dyslexic, and it's uncertain at the moment. But yeah.
It's either her or the person who wrote Twilight. It's one of the two. I'm a little bit intertwined.
I hope it's J.K. Rowling.
And I know that
I prefer that way more than Twilight.
I know the person who directed Lord of the Rings was dyslexic, so I think he might be a very good example for the narrative reasoning for storytellers and writers. even actors and actresses. I know that there's a whole load of awesome actors and actresses in Hollywood who are dyslexic. And then there's a dynamic reasoning, the last one, but it's an ability to predict using the past to predict future. I think this is quite interesting. It's politicians, I think, would be something like that. And well, on the website, I was just looking it up. This one was the venture capitalist entrepreneurs, whereas the end strings I was saying it's
and investors,
coaches, teachers. Yes, I'm sorry, I mixed up.
No, I can imagine that. And
I got the 4, but sorry about that.
No, that's fine. It just makes me think. I mean, from my perspective, I mean, I'm an academic. Now, I do visualize things a lot, and I see the interconnections of ideas. And one of the things that kind of I have to do is connect ideas in new and original ways, and it's the natural part of how I think. So I guess that's I guess I at least have a one of these strengths. Hopefully more than that.
Oh yes, or maybe you have 4, all 4, and then they worked interconnecting each other.
So one of the things, I mean, I hope so, I mean, and I think so, to be honest with you. And one of the things that you say is that a lot of people don't know about these mind strengths, these strengths of dyslexia. And you also say that people in China don't know much about dyslexia. So I'm guessing they've got almost no idea about the strengths of dyslexia. So what are awareness levels of dyslexia like in China? I mean, it's a big country, so, you know.
It is a very big country, and then we have this highly developed cities like Shanghai, like Shenzhen. These places, they have institutions to help dyslexics become functional institution, I would say, like for lack of better terms. But there are places that's more like rural in China, which I would say more than 60, if not 80% of China is like that. And those are the places that lack basic understanding of anything psychological. Like dyslexia, unlike, for better or for worse, it's unlike a lot of the disabilities. We don't have a behavioral or physical identification. So people don't usually aware that one is dyslexic. And what's even even more difficult for Chinese dyslexic is Chinese language uses pictogram. So dyslexia and symbol usually go hand in hand together. And a lot of the times these individuals might struggle in mathematics, so dyscalculia, or chemistry, physics, so, or English if they're learning English.
Well,
yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, is it true that when you read Chinese script, when you read these pictograms or logograms, then the part of the dyslexic brain that struggles with phonological processing or phonological decoding doesn't actually read these, essentially doesn't read these logograms. And so it's difficult to pick up dyslexia. Is that true?
I personally feel like it's partially true, but there are other studies stating that there are parts of a character when you're writing it, it could be flipped, it could be miswritten, you could miss a part of it. It does impact. I would say that it does impact. Some would even say English is easier, more friendly for dyslexic than Chinese. Some people might even say that. We know that, right?
Yeah, I spent 10 weeks in China a few years ago, and I found that once I was in one place for a week, I could mimic and essentially copy certain phrases, almost like I think linguists call this the I forgot what they call it. It's a particular way of learning a language, a little bit like you do in Duolingo, that kind of thing.
I believe,
but I could never read it. I could never read it. That it just seemed like incomprehensible squiggles. That's not an insult about the logographs. That's about me. I just couldn't seem to distinguish one from another.
It's not just you. It's not just you. Like the detail orientation of our brain, like before I start driving a car, I would not tell the difference between, let's say, an Audi and a Toyota. Like they're the same to me. The logos are the same. Like it's all circular around. You're not to blame. It is our brain. And also, a very interesting topic you just brought up for dyslexics like us. If we want to learn a language, we have to learn it through conversational interactions instead of reading or listening or even watching. Very good, but not as good as submersive learning. That's some things we could do. I just had a student that I took on. She speaks 4 languages, so English, French, German, and Mandarin fluently, verbally. She's only 15 when I first met her. And she said the reason why she can speak in these languages was because she was in a summer camp for 1 month, and that's it. She's dyslexic, and that's how she learned. Yes, and personally, I also experienced that as well. I've grown up in North America, but I speak fluently in Mandarin. So if you were going to speak to me in Mandarin, you would not tell that I was ever like away from China. I'm very native. I speak 2 languages in Chinese, so dialogues are different. So
I always joke that when I speak German, it's what I call Kneiperdeutsch, which is essentially pub German, because I learned it in pubs, speaking German, with no teaching, just basically. Bea was my teacher, and it was kind of an immersion. Yeah, especially in the pubs in Germany, yeah. So.
Well, so what I've been doing in China for the past years was to spread the knowledge of dyslexia through like what is called the WeChat articles. So a lot of people use this. It's sort of like their combination of WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram together. So people use this quite often. So I write articles, and I sometimes translate some articles from Dr. Aiden's website. Of course, they give me the go-ahead, but it's very difficult because people don't usually read as much about these things. And nowadays, like we're talking about the modern China, right? People have a lot of struggles that they are facing, and the parents, they specifically see that their child are struggling in school. And China is, as we know, overpopulated. We have so many people in China, and Chinese people view themselves in a way as resources. If you cannot do one job, there are 400 people lined up to take over, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not achieving the best grade, you're basically cast out, and parents are anxious. They see a smart child, but this child cannot succeed or cannot at least express their intelligence on academics. So they seek the fast remedy to fix this issue, because like with all the other countries, the study is the #1 issue, but in China, you got to put it on like steroids, because you have to do it fast.
I sat in on a class in China, and it looked like there was a lot of learning by rote. Is that correct? Is that how people learn in China, or am I just generalizing from 1 or 2 classes that I saw?
It's basically just like what you're saying. For example, creativity and critical thinking are generally not encouraged. You just sit there and listen. If you can copy off exact word by word, then you're a top student. That's it. So as you can see right away, the 2 things that dyslexic are good at gets elevated. And if you are going to, let's say, be the class clown, teacher hates you automatically. Because like, it's not because of the teacher's fault. No, the teacher are in charge and a lot of students, and they're not really giving all the resources that's given to all the other teachers. So it really is a very situation in China. Then like the parents would take their kids to after school activities, hoping that this would help. But then even if you're taking your kids to, let's say, arts or music, something that a lot of dyslexics thrive on, the way that it's teaching is not it's not interesting. Like you sit there and the teacher draws an apple. You have to draw an apple just like how the teacher drew it, exactly common shape. Play music, learn it. Like, so it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, yeah. It actually removes the creativity from something that should be creativity itself. And that's so can I ask about, on the one hand, there's this pressure to succeed. On the other hand, there's a lack of understanding about dyslexia. And so I'm guessing if there's little understanding about dyslexia, then the dyslexic kids at school, and as they grow out of school, will succeed less. Is there also an attitude to dyslexia that accompanies this? With a lack of understanding, there's often a negative or frightened attitude, or is it not the case there? Is it far more, if you like, human-centered, or do people find it a little bit, I don't know, is there a stigma, essentially?
Very much so. You reminded me of a student of mine. He just moved to Canada, actually, and he made a film about himself and his struggles while growing up as a dyslexic child in China.
Okay.
I would love to share the film with you later on.
Please.
So he does not know that he's dyslexic. There is no word about dyslexia since, I would say, like early 2008,
right.
I think. And they just think, okay, yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. But I just got interested. You say that there wasn't a word until the 2000s for dyslexia.
2008, actually.
2008. So do you know what the word translates as? So does it translate as something like the German way of translating it, which is, if you like, difficulties with weak reading and writing, or
exactly. Chinese works a lot like Latin. So dyslexia, exactly. It's 读写障碍. 读写 is reading and writing. 障碍 means like disable or blockage or like. And I've been advocating saying, no, we cannot translate it like that. We need to translate it into 读写困难. Difficulty, that's it, because it can be overcome, and we shouldn't be focusing on the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and yet people focus on the negatives. So what kind of provisions, as it were, do dyslexia associations or government departments have for just right.
Nothing. And it's such a negative stigma. First of all, people don't want to talk about it. Second, it's hard to catch. Third, a lot of since it's unorganized, there are a lot of people who are making money out of it, selling their remedies, and they're not educated on this term. They themselves cannot read research papers because they don't know what English is. So essentially, sometimes I do feel that the articles that I've been translated is feeding into these people, and I hope that they read, because if they read, at least they can have some insights into dyslexia. In that case, then they can help more people. There is no organizations, at least official organizations. There's no regulations. There is no proper institutions for dyslexia.
Wow! Nothing. Not even in the large cities. Not even in Shanghai or Beijing or.
There are hospitals claiming that they can do diagnosis. They're claiming that they can do diagnosis, but no, you can translate diagnosis. You can translate it, but there are a big cultural blockage and differences. It's not going to be accurate. And China is not developing their own testing tools. I did have a friend of mine who mentioned that she was dyslexic. And right away, the psychologist heard that, and she says, "You're not dyslexic. Grades are good. You're not dyslexic." So disqualifies her for even stating that she's dyslexic. And she says, "These are the traits I have. I display." And then they said, "Okay, well, China doesn't have this. China has a different for, like, we have in North America, we have DSM-5, right? China has their own manual as well. So it doesn't have dyslexia. It could be diagnosed as ADHD, but there's no dyslexia."
Wow. Okay. Wow. Even though there's more dyslexia in the world than ADHD, you can get diagnosed with ADHD, but not with dyslexia. That's fascinating.
No dyslexia.
Wow. No. And is there a difference then? You mentioned the word culture. So I'm going to... the word culture is a very difficult word in so many ways. But can I say, on the one hand, between between, let's say, the upper and the middle class and the working class, and on the other hand between the older and the younger, and then perhaps also between what you might call mainland China and Canton or Hong Kong. Are there differences between, as it were, different cultural groups or different demographics in whether there's a level of understanding? So maybe in Hong Kong there might be more understanding than in, I don't know, than in a small town in Hebei province or something.
It's true. Like for example, Hong Kong has a very good hospital and some psychologists and even psychiatrists who can do diagnosis for dyslexia. They even have organizations to help people with dyslexia. And that's something that I'm hoping that mainland China would catch on and learn. But as close as they are with, like, they're not catching up on that because it's so overlooked. This exists, but people don't look at it. And like even talk about another place in the world, Taiwan, which was very developed regarding dyslexia and like accommodations, and it's such a beautiful country. It does its own thing. China, it shares the same, like China, if they want to learn, they could clearly go ahead and learn from it. So Singapore, people there speaks Mandarin, some people Mandarin, and the guy, I think the previous, was it prime minister or president? He's president, I think, was also dyslexic himself.
And the Dyslexia Association of Singapore is amazing.
Oh my gosh, it's there are ways to learn, but you don't have these things. Like, so it's bigger problem. It's bigger issue that China is worrying about. It's not education. Like when we talk about the fundamental build-ups of a country, like China focuses on like beautiful architectures, like hosting events. These are awesome things. But a lot of the other countries might be focused on education, healthcare. China needs to do more of that. I'm probably gonna get canceled for saying this in China, but it's the fact. I love the people, and I really hope the best for the country. So
don't worry. I rant about how I'm a massive Germanophile. I love Germany, and I get really angry with their provision as well sometimes. I think we're allowed to if we love a place. I think there's something that sort of allows us to do that. I mean, is it that in China, I mean, I'm just guessing, this is just simply riffing off the top of my head, but could it be in China that there's something about a country whose economy and political status is growing so quickly that it's almost acceptable to grow quickly and have a few people who are collateral damage in that? So if you're like, so the majority benefits, and you get a few people by the wayside, never mind. Is it maybe an attitude of that, or am I just guessing?
I think you're right. A lot of politicians does have that, if we call them politicians in China, does have that mindset of collateral damages. But like, it goes to that philosophical questions. When are you going to become the damage? Everybody is that 1% at times, right? So, like there are, I would say that yes, economic developments and this and that, and Chinese people moving fast. But like, let's be real. China was known in the world for scholars, thinkers, philosophers, developers. Like, come on, like this past century or two, China doesn't have much developments, I guess. But prior to that, like the compass, the watch, like the paper, fireworks, like these are like in like innovations. Where did it go? Why isn't China winning like any Nobel Prize? Why does China far behind on like innovations? Why? Like there is a fundamental issue of education, of how people, like, if we forget about the whole follow the rules, you're part of a collective, but we look inside and developed as an individual, we will find similarities between each other. There are 80%, 90% similarities and differences, but that 1% or 2% differences is where the innovation comes from. So there is no need to teach collective mindset. We are similar to each other.
So China is not doing that. It's like, okay, screw you and your differences. Everybody gets their hair cut this short and go to school and learn about the same thing. Yeah, so like that's not no. Yeah.
Yeah.